Hi, brothers and sisters. This is Ryan Zell of Christian Virtue and Grace. Many Catholic politicians will have you believe that socialism is compatible with Catholicism. An article appearing in American Magazine, published by Father James Martin, also makes the claim that Catholics can be socialists. In this presentation, we will explore as to why one cannot be a good Catholic and a good socialist at the same time. Catholicism and socialism are incompatible at every level and are intrinsically the antithesis of each other. Such persons who claim that socialism and Catholicism are compatible either do not know much about socialism or Catholicism or are gravely mistaken. In this three-part series, we will explore why this socio-political ideology is incompatible with Catholicism. What is socialism? Socialism is a collective term applied to a spectrum of social, political, and economic theories which advocates that society, as a communal whole, should own or regulate the means of production, distribution, and exchange as a method of addressing what socialists perceive to be unjust social, political, and economic disparities between the social classes of people. This wide spectrum of socialism ranges from totalitarian communism to democratic socialism, all of which essentially disagree on how socialism is to be politically implemented within a specific society. Communist systems insist on a single-party authoritarian dictatorship of the proletariat, while democratic socialists Communist systems insist on a single-party authoritarian dictatorship of the proletariat, while democratic socialist systems defends a multi-party democratic polity as a political means to achieve socialism's objectives. However, all socialists are in agreement that the central tenet of all socialist ideologies, that the government must play an interventionistic part of the socio-economic life of society to minimize socio-economic disparity among the masses. Socialism is not simply an economic theory or simply a social theory or simply a political theory. It is an expansive, holistic ideology. It is a comprehensive system of ideas, values, and beliefs intimately interconnected with politics, society, and the economy with a fundamental philosophical theory. Socialism as an ideology originates in French Enlightenment philosophies of Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Henri de Saint-Simon, Charles Fourier, Pierre-Joseph Proudhon, and Robert Owen, culminating in the Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, who merged the German Enlightenment philosophies of Ludwig Feuerbach and young Engelsens to synthesize didactical material, a philosophy presented by them in the didactical treatise, the Communist Manifesto. Ferdinand Lassalle, Vladimir Lenin, Mikhail Bakunin, Leon Trotsky, Benito Mussolini, Mao Zedong, and many others built upon this foundational philosophy the various forms of socialism which exists today. Catholic socialism. What makes such a holistic ideology which sensibly attempts to create, according to socialists, a just society which is fraternal and egalitarian, so diametrically opposed to and incompatible with Catholicism? Many Catholic politicians on the left claim to be socialists and that socialism is compatible with Catholic social and moral teachings, and that Catholic social teaching and socialism have the same objectives. These Catholics claim that socialism and Catholics have the same shared objective of social justice. Therefore, is there a compromise which can be reached between Catholicism and socialism? Dialectical materialism is the foundational metaphysics upon which socialism builds upon. Dialectical materialism provides the theoretical foundation for Marxism, while socialism, in all its forms, is the praxis of Marxism. Dialectical materialism is a methodology employed to analyzing and understanding reality, whether thoughts, emotions, or the material world. Socialism is a materialistic philosophy, meaning that it acknowledges that only matter and energy exists, and therefore socialism is a scientific in that it accepts the metaphysics as which is fundamentally empirical. Socialism at its core is essentially a secular and atheistic philosophy which denies the supernatural because of this acceptance of a metaphysics which is purely empirical. The constituents of reality are therefore limited to that which is determined to exist by empirical and scientific means. Dialectical materialism is a critical methodology employed to analyzing and understanding reality through thoughts and argumentation regarding the material world. The dialectic method employed by Marxism is not as much concerned with the natural world, but that of the world created by man, the society which he inhabitates. Dialectic method is employed to attempt to synthesize ideas through reason and understand things concretely in all their movement, change, and interconnection with their opposite and contradictory elements as a unity. It attempts to provide praxeological approach to understand personal, political, social, and economic behavior of man. Dialectical materialism examines human social history, focusing on human societies and their development through history, and postulating that history is the result of material conditions, better known as the materialistic conception of history. It is through this lens which Marxism attempts to understand human social history. Marxism asserts a theory of history where knowledge, technology, capital goods, infrastructure, and human labor, which are termed productive forces, and the relationship which a person must enter into definitive social relationships in order to survive, to produce, and reproduce, which is termed the relations of production, fundamentally undermine society's organization and development. Marxism claims that man, as a social person, would choose to work collectively and cooperatively, but a society where class stratification exists, division of labor where people perform different kind of labor and occupy different social positions that exist. Such difference is most manifest between the manual and the intellectual labor, where one class produces while the other controls the means of production and governs society, living of the wealth generated by the working classes. Marxism does not seek the absolute truth, or even truth as we know it, but it to come to an understanding of the world, and this understanding is dynamic and subject to change due to scientific and technological advances as society progresses, as truth is considered scientific and therefore empirically verifiable. The underlying materialistic metaphysics of socialism denies the existence of any supernatural reality. Materialism to a socialist means that only the material world, that is to say, exists as an objective reality and exists independent of the mind. Dialectical materialism is opposed to realist philosophies, including modern realism, also known as immanent realism, which underpins both Catholic and Judaic theology. Since metaphysics is foundational to a philosophical system, the denial of the supernatural is a priori postulate in didactical materialism. Socialism and Catholicism are fundamentally and foundationally incompatible. Either dialectical materialism is true or realism is true, though the possibility exists that both could be false. One cannot realistically be both a socialist and a Catholic, as that would force that acceptance of two contradictory belief systems simultaneously, leading to cognitive dissonance. Socialism's underlying philosophy, which didactical materialism, is fundamentally atheistic, denying the existence of a divine being, and therefore is antithetical to Catholicism. The dialectical method was employed by the early socialists of the later German Enlightenment, the young Hegelians, to mount a harsh critique of Christianity, which was the prevailing doctrine. Marx and Engels were influenced by the anti-Christian materialistic writings of Feuerbach. Socialism views religion as mythology, which recedes as reason and scientific knowledge advances. Socialism views religion as nothing more than barbaric ignorance and superstition, which has survived to the last vestiges of pre-civilization, meaning the pre-Enlightenment era. Socialist theory maintains that religion promises the proletariat hope of rewards in an afterlife, provided they accept servitude to the capitalist overlords as their allotment. However, since socialism acknowledges only material existence, socialism denies the existence of a deity and an afterlife. Religion provides an illusion of happiness to the underclasses, preventing them from demanding actual material happiness. Religion justifies the existence of bourgeoisie social order and the hierarchies which are created within the social order and explained away as God's will. Consequently, socialists consider religion a tool of oppression wielded by the bourgeoisie classes and churchmen against their proletariat masses, and functions as a soporific dispensed to deaden the effects of inevitable social misery in society ruled by the bourgeoisie classes. Religion serves as an organ of bourgeoisie reaction and used for the protection of the exploitation and stupefaction of the working class. Socialists therefore conclude that all religion ought to be abolished and atheism embraced, as it is a natural integral part of socialist theory and scientific socialism. Among the tasks of the socialist cultural revolution is the proletariat's struggle against religion, and such a struggle must be carried out systematically and relentlessly. The proletarian must seek to destroy all government support of the church, which is an agent of the governing classes, must destroy all participation by churches in the government organization, work, or upbringing and education, and must mercilessly suppress the counter-revolutionary activity of church organizations. At the same time, the proletariat must destroy privileged position of the religion, conducts all by possible means anti-religious propaganda, and reconstructs all upbringing and educational work on the basis of a scientific, materialistic worldview. Socialism seeks to eliminate religion through universal free education based on scientific socialism and scientific humanism, which are inseparable from socialist ideology. Socialist theorists maintain that the campaign against the backwardness of the masses in this matter of religion must be conducted with patience and considerateness, as well as with energy and perseverance. The proletariat, educated in socialist ideology, are once released from the shackles of the religion, would be capable of reasoning scientifically, will abandon religion, which deprived of any reason for existence would become merely an anarchism within the socialist society. Socialism, from its very beginning, had a particular hostility towards the Catholic Church, as it viewed the Catholic Church, its main opponent, in the area of ideas and for the hearts and minds of the populace. It was the Dominicans and the Jesuits at the University of Salamanca who first began treating economics as a scientist, who endorsed free market economics a century before Adam Smith. However, it was not the support of free market economics which brings socialism and Catholicism into conflict. Rather, it was Catholicism's influence over Western civilization, which she built, and cultures which caused this animus. Socialism views Catholicism as the influencing doctrine of Western civilization, and which birthed the Western civilization. This birthing occurred not only in the realm of thought, such as philosophy and theology, but in the reality of praxis, with the Pope as the monarchist center of feudalism and hierarchy. It was the Catholic Church which gave sanction of the feudalism of the state. Since the Catholic clergy were constituted the educated class, it was natural that Catholic Church was the initiating point of all thought, jurisprudence, natural science, philosophy, and everything was dealt with according to whether it agreed or disagreed with the doctrines of the Catholic Church. Socialism considers Catholicism a world power, which stands against socialism, which no other institutional world power or religion can, and for this reason, socialism considers Catholicism its greatest opponent. Education is of supreme importance in the socialist state, as socialism seeks to proselytize socialist ideology through propaganda and didactics. Marx held the view that children ought to be indoctrinated in socialist ideology as soon as the child can have some independence of its mother. Socialism places a considerable emphasis on the education of the populace within the socialist state. Since socialism runs counter to natural human conditions, that is, the individual exercising his freedom will naturally pursue his own individualistic ambitions. The individual must receive re-education to eliminate behavior deemed antisocial. The socialists contend that the education systems in market economies promote bourgeoisie ideology through the curriculum, which intends to create docile and compliant workforces for the capitalists. Socialists, therefore, seek to proselytize the socialist ideology and educate the masses with particular emphasis focused on the education of children and workers in socialist theory and materialistic dialectic to help them escape generational exploitation by the corporations and the bourgeoisie capitalists. Therefore, education, while universal, free, and compulsory, the curriculum is to be determined by the state and its agencies and provided by the socialist state and its institutions at the state's expense. The socialist state usurps the parental role by removing children from parental supervision and placing children in state institutions taught by instructors who act as agents of the socialist state and teach a curriculum determined by socialist technocrats employed by the state. Given that the intention of such a socialist curriculum is the instruction of children in the socialist ideology and theory and the materialistic dialectic, such an education serves to inculcate within students an atheistic materialistic Weltanschauung through which they examine and process information. Due to this indoctrination of the atheistic materialistic Weltanschauung, children are prevented from theistic spiritual inquiry or theistic religion, as the indoctrinated Weltanschauung leaves no room for the existence of any material beings. Parents attempting to provide a religious upbringing of their children are considered to be antisocial or reactionaries, undermining the secular socialist state. Such antisocial behavior by parents is considered detrimental to the child, resulting in the removal of children from their parental environment to another determined to be better suited to raising a child as determined by the socialist technocrats employed by the state. Many secularists consider providing a child a religious education and upbringing nothing more than an attempt at indoctrination and therefore child abuse, yet permit the state to indoctrinate children as the technocrat and agents of the state determines necessary to groom children as citizens of the socialist state. Parents are prevented by the socialist state from passing on to their children their religious traditions and morals until children can make such decisions for themselves as adults. While the state can indoctrinate children in their socialistic ideology as soon as children enter the government-controlled educational system, thereby inoculating them against following a theist religion or spirituality of their parents. Watch out for part 2 in this series on socialism. Please do not forget to click the like button if you like the content of this video, and please consider subscribing to this channel and engage in conversation by commenting. God bless you all.